Preseason week 1 is in the books, and we have some major risers and fallers based on all of the recent news. We got players going down left and right. We got a lot of usage to talk about. So today I'm going to go through 10 of my biggest rankings risers over the last weekend or so, as well as a couple fallers and some guys that popped out to me in the first preseason game as well. So if you want all of our rankings, they are all up to date as of today. Head on over to flockfantasy.com, use the promo code FSE to get them, or you can get them in our draft guide, which you can get for free by signing up on Underdog Fantasy, depositing $10, using the promo code FSE. It'll be in your email inbox within 24 hours. Let's get right into the players here. Javonte Williams is the first riser in my rankings. I have him at RB27 before this weekend. I have him at RB22 now for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I wanted to know that he was healthy. It looks like he is. He's playing in preseason games. Number two, I wanted to see him actually look a little bit better than he looked last year. His whole offseason has been such a roller coaster. It started with some beat reporter saying he might get cut. Then we've heard Sean Payton talking him up. Now he's getting all this great usage. Javonte Williams, people might forget, was a top 15 running back in weighted opportunities per game last year. Looked like himself in the preseason from like a usage standpoint as well as a talent standpoint. Jared Smola and I talked about him on the 0RB targets video a couple days ago, and Sean Payton produces fantasy running back. So if Javonte Williams is right, if Javonte Williams is the starter, which it appears he is based on the usage we saw, he played 9 of the 12 snaps with Jarrett Stidham in the starters, 4 of the routes run there, 2 targets, 4 carries. He was getting the usage you want to see him get, so he's checking the boxes so far. He is now 2 years removed from the torn ACL that he suffered back in 2022. I was really impressed with Bo Nix as well. I think by the end of the offseason, Bo Nix will have won out this starting job, and I look at a guy with 3 down upside. Javonte Williams was a good receiver early on in his NFL career, very good receiver in college, very good at breaking tackles, very good at making people miss. We just haven't seen that guy because he's been dealing with injuries. So right now, I'm seeing a healthy player attached to an offense that I think is somewhat underrated, especially if Bo Nix continues to play how he played. And I am all the way in at the price tag you're getting him at, because Javonte Williams is the type of guy that you can get as like your second running back in a hero RB build in round 8 of your fantasy draft, in round 9 of your fantasy draft. You don't have to take this guy in the 4th round like you might have had to take him a couple of years ago. People are worried by the injury concerns, and I, for one, am not, because we haven't seen really anything indicating that he should be injured right now. He's lost some weight. He looks a little bit more spry. Looks like he can break tackles. Sean Payton apparently sat down with him and said, North Carolina, Javonte Williams, that's who I want my lead running back to be. Can you get to that? What was your weight at that time? How can you get to that level again? And Javonte was up for the challenge by the sounds of it. So David Montgomery, another guy that is on the rise for me right now with the recent news of Jahmyr Gibbs' hamstring pull. He was my RB29 before this news. He is my RB24 now. Preemptively, I'm kind of moving him up because Jahmyr Gibbs is expected to be out a couple weeks by the looks of it with a hamstring injury. We do not know the severity of this hamstring injury yet. Is it a grade 1 hamstring pull? Is it a grade 2? Is it a grade 3? If it's a grade 2 or 3, we'll probably hear some kind of update. But for now, I'm kind of assuming it's just a grade 1 hamstring pull because they haven't really indicated it's going to be any more severe than that. It looks like an average 2 to 3 week average timeline diagnosis according to some of the fantasy doctors I've seen. But we also have heard from a couple Twitter reporters that the injury might have been more severe than just your run-of-the-mill hamstring pull. So I don't think I could spell out what happens to Jahmyr Gibbs right now, but what I do know is I can spell out what happens to David Montgomery if David Montgomery is the lead back in Detroit. He's going to be a goal line back. He's going to get all the work. In games where Gibbs was limited or out in 2023, David Montgomery averaged 17 PPR points per game, or just under 17 PPR points per game. So David Montgomery for now, a guy that I would want to get my exposure up to. If you have a draft coming up, I would probably just avoid Jahmyr Gibbs until we hear positive news, but I'm not really moving him in my rankings yet. He is still my RB4, 11th or 12th overall player until we get some more clarity on the severity of his injury. Chase Brown, the next guy that we're going to talk about, RB27 in my rankings before this weekend, RB23 in my rankings now. The hype train has been a full go for us here at FSE over the years with Chase Brown, but it is really materializing in 2024. Chase Brown played 100% of the snaps with Joe Burrow in the starters in the first preseason game, and he also got the third down, long down, and distance work that you want to see. Zach Moss was out for the game, so we can't draw too much away from the usage, but it is definitely good news so far. It's looking really promising that the young running back who has elite athleticism, pass-catching upside, a history of being a workhorse in college going back to his profile, high ceiling offense with the Bengals there, light boxes knowing that they have those field-stretching wide receivers and a great quarterback. it's all promising news for Chase Brown, especially when everything the coaching staff has said, everything the front office has said is this guy looks like the most improved player on the team. He's great in pass protection. He has a chance to be our lead back, could be special this year. Left tackle Orlando Brown said if he played fantasy football, he would draft Chase Brown. Maybe Zach Moss is going to be a bit of a headache at some point, especially early on in the NFL season. But Zach Moss was nothing for the first 4 years of his career until last year with the Indianapolis Colts. And Shane Steichen is an awesome coach, especially as it pertains to calling a rushing offense. This is Zach Moss's third team in 5 NFL seasons. I am not scared one bit about Zach Moss. I know he had an okay year last year, but I'm not really scared that he's going to just be the lead back here. I think he is a contingency plan if Chase Brown doesn't take the next step forward, hence the money that he was paid in free agency not being that substantial. So if they wanted a better running back, they could have signed DeAndre Swift, Saquon Barkley, somebody like that, but they didn't. They went and bargain bin hunt for Zach Moss and got him as a contingency running back. So Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy both on the rise for me in light of the Marquise Brown news. Wide receiver 32 was Rashee Rice prior to this injury to Marquise Brown. He is wide receiver 25 for me now. Xavier Worthy 35, now wide receiver 32 for me in my rankings. Marquise Brown is expected to be out probably the next 4 to 6 weeks, according to a lot of fantasy doctors. Weeks 1 to 2 is when he's projected to come back. Xavier Worthy registered a 75% route participation with Patrick Mahomes in his first preseason game as a 21-year-old rookie. So that is great news for Xavier Worthy, one of my favorite upside swings in the 6th, 7th, 8th round of fantasy football drafts right now. Rashee Rice, I talked about in yesterday's video when me and Danny were talking about must-draft players in the mid-rounds. In a nutshell, what I talked about in that video was we're getting closer and closer to Rashee Rice not being suspended. Drew Davenport, who is a practicing law attorney, gave fantasy drafters a vote of confidence about 2 weeks ago when he said that the longer we go without a Rashee Rice decision or suspension, it looks like he is going to play a full season in 2024. And he actually said himself he expects him to play a full season in 2024, barring any new unforeseen changes, because the criminal trial has not been set yet, and the civil trial is set for December 9th. In both situations, the NFL is going to be patient and let the legal system play out to some degree. So Rashee Rice is much more likely to get suspended next season than he is this season, based on the fact that we're 3 weeks away from the year right now, and we still don't have any information on the criminal trial if his situation is going to get any worse. We don't have any information on that now, so for now, I would assume that the NFL is not going to suspend him until the following season unless some new information comes to light. So moving on to Rome Odunze, who actually is a sneaky riser this week. I don't think a lot of people would talk about him as a riser, but I believe he is. Wide receiver 39 for me in my rankings before this, wide receiver 36 for me now. The good that happened to him in preseason week 1, you have to dig for it, because with Rome Odunze, some bad definitely happened, and that's what people might focus on. But the good for me is that Odunze was out there playing some snaps with the first team and Caleb Williams. More good news, Caleb Williams looks like an absolute star in the making. I think he is going to elevate this offense. We already probably knew that, but it's nice to get confirmation with your eyes. And the reports all of training camp were that him and Odunze had a really, really good connection, and a lot of people said, you know, 2 rookies coming in together, they worked out during the draft, they were going to have a great connection, and it's going to look very good for the long term. Even more good news is that Keenan Allen apparently has ballooned up 25 pounds and is up to 230 pounds right now. He was listed at 206 pounds with the Chargers. He's an older receiver with a lot of injury concerns, and he is also out of shape by the looks of it. So for me, Rome Odunze has a chance to really get on the field right away. If Keenan Allen is washed, if Keenan Allen is slow, if he is out of shape, he wasn't fast before this at a bigger size, I can't imagine he's going to be any sprier. That could mean great things for Rome Odunze. In 12 personnel, I expect Odunze and DJ Moore before long to be the 2 starting wide receivers on the outside. And the reason that's relevant is because they played Gerald Everett a ton in that first preseason game and Cole Kmet on the field at the same time. So in my opinion, maybe not week 1, maybe not week 2, but by week 3 to 7, we are going to see Rome Odunze on the field very quickly. And Rome Odunze was a top 10 pick, high-end prospect. I thought he was a really, really good prospect, a top 3 wide receiver in this class. Probably would have been wide receiver 1 in many other fantasy football classes, but this year we had Neighbors and we had Marvin Harrison. Shane Waldron, for whatever reason, is going to run Gerald Everett and Cole Kmet on the field too much, but I'm not really worried. Even though he ran 63% 3 wide receiver sets in Seattle last year, despite having DK Metcalf, JSN, and Tyler Lockett, I do actually think that Rome Odunze will not be the biggest casualty of this, whereas some people are taking it as a precautionary sign for Rome Odunze, but I am not at this point in time. Jordan Love is the next guy we're going to talk about as a riser. Quarterback 10 for me before this, quarterback 8 after this weekend. The reason he's a great fantasy pick for me is this. With ambiguous wide receiver cores, ambiguous tight end cores, ambiguous running back cores, the whole Packers situation, we have no idea who this offense is going to run through. And I'm sure Matt LaFleur loves that because it makes them hard to game plan against, and it makes them a really potent offense with a lot of depth that it can, overcome an injury or two. But in this situation, you buy the syrup, not the pancakes. The guy that is going to benefit from all of this is Jordan Love. I don't know if Dontavian Wicks is the number one. I don't know if Christian Watson's the number one. I don't know if Jaden Reed is the number one or Romeo Doubs is this great fantasy pick. I don't even know who the starting tight end is. Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, I think they're both talented. What I do know is that this offense will be really good. And Jordan Love is going to benefit from all of this. He was a top 6 fantasy quarterback in his first NFL season as a starter. And if they're truly going to be this chameleon offense that can change based on every week's opponent, and this week in the game plan, for example, they think it's a great Jaden Reed game, and they use him a lot. Again, Jordan Love will get all of the production no matter what wide receiver is the one that feasts on that week. So if you're going to attack this wide receiver core, do it in best ball for starters. And second of all, take Jordan Love because he is going to be the guy that benefits the most from this wide receiver core being murky and having a lot of talented players there. I raised Jordan Love over Burrow and Dak for the very reason that I think they're all very good quarterbacks, all pocket passer type of quarterbacks who could throw for 35, 40 passing touchdowns, but Burrow and Dak's weapons core are a lot shallower. If CeeDee Lamb goes down, that might be curtains for Dak. If Jamar Chase or T. Higgins go down, that is going to severely impact Joe Burrow. With Jordan Love, if Dontavian Wicks misses the entire season, he's just fine. If Jaden Reed misses 6 games during the year, he's completely fine. So for me with Jordan Love, it's about a floor raiser with his offense than a ceiling raiser, because I do think we've already seen his weekly ceiling even just last year in his first year as a starter. So moving on to Brian Thomas Jr., another guy that I feel pretty good about after this weekend. Wide receiver 46 before the weekend, wide receiver 42 for me now. This blurb is from Dwayne McFarland's preseason recap on Fantasy Life, which is a completely free article. I highly recommend it. Wide receiver and tight end takeaways here from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brian Thomas Jr. played 100% of the snaps with the starter. He wasn't targeted by Lawrence, but he did have a 42-yard reception, which I saw. It was a nice catch. And also, too, the Jaguars took Christian Kirk off of the field in the 2 wide receiver set looks that they did. And it kind of makes sense. Christian Kirk is their slot receiver. Gabriel Davis and Brian Thomas are these big, long, downfield, vertical, outside guys. So if they're going to take Christian Kirk off the field and run anytime 2 wide receiver sets are on the field, Brian Thomas is always out there, especially as a first-round rookie when that was not a guarantee. Brian Thomas needs to rise up in the rankings because Trevor Lawrence has a big arm. He had a propensity to throw downfield to Calvin Ridley last year. He was top 5 in the NFL in deep targets, and Brian Thomas is significantly more suited for that role than Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is a route runner. He's the type of guy that you get short and intermediate targets as well as deep targets, but Brian Thomas is the guy that you want stretching the field. So bad news for Christian Kirk, good news for the first-round rookie wide receiver Brian Thomas, already making big plays in that game. Already a starter with the first-team offense by the looks of it as well. Tyjae Spears, another guy that is on the rise for me right now, running back 30 in my rankings prior to this weekend, running back 26 for me now. The Titans' backfield was a total split, dead even between Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears, and that's great news. And you guys might be thinking, why is that great news? We want Tyjae Spears to be the starter. The reason that's great news is because they paid Tony Pollard. He was never going to come into the season as the backup. Tyjae Spears was going to come into the season as the backup no matter what. The fact that it is already a 50-50 split bodes very well for Tyjae Spears. Tony Pollard looked old, he looked washed, he looked slow, he looked inefficient last year. Tyjae Spears, on the other hand, is young, has fresh legs, was extremely efficient as a rookie, and a very good receiving prospect as well. The lion's share of the routes and the high-value looks, I believe, will be Tyjae Spears before long in this backfield. And I get it, this team's not very good. We don't expect them to be the best offense in the league, but they are going to throw the ball. Will Levis is going to drop back pretty much more than any other quarterback in the league based on the system coming in with Brian Callahan and how much Will Levis likes to throw the ball. I want the younger, fresher legs back with elite efficiency his rookie season, as opposed to the guy who was washed last year and was on the Dallas Cowboys as a lead running back and still couldn't finish as an RB1, even despite having like the top 5 inside the 5 carries in the league. He just was so bad last year. And again, maybe Pollard was injured and that was the problem, but to me, I'm betting on the contingency play that Tyjae Spears can win this job without an injury to Tony Pollard. I don't even think he needs to go down for Tyjae Spears to be the more valuable back here, so he is a guy I am attacking in drafts right now. Khalil Herbert, final guy that we're going to talk about as far as like the major risers. RB54 in my rankings before this, RB45 in my rankings now. Khalil Herbert is the type of guy that you draft late and you kind of hope for the best. I get you can paint pictures against Khalil Herbert and say, oh, the only reason he was used a lot in the preseason, because as you can see on the screen, he was used a ton more than DeAndre Swift, is because they're trying to trade him. Okay, that still makes him a good value, because if they trade him, he's going to be more valuable than he is currently. Or we take this the inverse side of things. Maybe he's just a bigger part of this backfield than people are giving him credit for. In that case, he's also a good value. So either way you slice it, we're looking at Khalil Herbert being a better value than we thought before. In either case, you want to be drafting him at this point in time, because if he gets traded to the Cowboys, he's obviously going to be a potential league winner. If he stays in Chicago, he could eventually become the starting running back there. And he actually had a very good season, very efficient, top 15 in rushing grade last year per PFF. So with Khalil Herbert, I feel good that he's just a good late round dart throw. I don't know how he gets on the field. I don't know when he gets on the field. I don't even know which team he gets on the field for, but I know he's a good player. And I know if he gets opportunity, he has a chance to really pay off on that. So a couple other guys that I think just looked good. Again, I watched every single preseason game. I'm sure you guys didn't, because you probably have lives and kids and wives and things of that nature, but I watched every single preseason game, and the guys that also just looked good to me and keep them on your radar, Dontavian Wicks, wide receiver of the Packers, obviously had a long touchdown that was really nice. Jalen McMillan, wide receiver, rookie wide receiver of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, looked really good. Jalen Polk, wide receiver, rookie wide receiver of the New England Patriots, had a couple nice catches. Khalil Shakir, wide receiver of the Buffalo Bills, had a nice yards after the catch play and also had some good usage. Tyrone Tracy, running back of the New York Giants, was the clear number 2 back there, although it sounds like he got hurt in practice today, so keep that in mind. Monitor his health situation. Trey Benson, running back of the Arizona Cardinals, very clearly the lead back if anything happens to James Conner based on the usage, and I thought he looked pretty good as well. All 6 rookie quarterbacks, Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels especially, looked really good. J.J. McCarthy now seems to be on the mend with this knee injury that he's dealing with, but I thought Penix looked good in his limited time. I thought Drake May looked good in his limited time. I was really impressed with Bo Nix as well. Also nice to see Greg Dulcich back out there for the Denver Broncos, maybe a deep sleeper at tight end. Notable guys also who had the day off at the in the preseason games. We saw Ezekiel Elliott rest with the starters. We saw Jalen Tolbert rest with the starters there in Dallas. We saw Ladd McConkey, Josh Palmer, the only 2 rested wide receivers with the Los Angeles Chargers. So a couple notable guys that had the day off. Definitely encouraging. Like I said, Arizona, James Conner had the day off, so it appears he is the clear lead back there. And then some players subsequently on the fall in my rankings. We have Jahmyr Gibbs. Haven't moved him down officially yet, like I said, because I'm waiting more news on his hamstring injury. But for now, I'm probably not drafting him if I'm doing best ball drafts. Marquise Brown, definitely injury related as well. 4 to 6 weeks he's expected to miss. Christian Kirk, the 2 wide receiver set usage kind of is discouraging me. For a guy that didn't really have a huge upside swing to begin with, knowing that Brian Thomas Jr. is already on the field makes me a little bit nervous, because I think he is the higher upside play in this Jacksonville Jaguars offense. Cole Kmet and the Gerald Everett usage debacle is definitely something. I wouldn't draft Cole Kmet in a redraft league. I think you should do way better at the tight end position, because he might not even be the starting tight end of this team based on how Shane Waldron wants to use these guys. So if you guys enjoyed this video, if you got some value from it, got some updates from the preseason that you didn't know, leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Check out all of our other videos. The #1 draft strategy video is definitely doing really well. Appreciate the support on that. Definitely check out our draft guide, promo code FSE on Underdog Fantasy, and a $10 deposit gets you our draft guide for free. If you want to sign up on Underdog, do some drafts, sharpen up for your home league, drafting on Underdog is the best way that you can beat your league mates, because on Underdog Fantasy, it's sharper ADP. You get to know and understand where players should be going based on the best fantasy players in the world, and you also get the best opportunity to understand how to beat your league mates, to structure teams, to get practice in real paid big money drafts at times. Or you can just do $3 mini schnauzers, which is a contest that just dropped today. Head on over to Underdog Fantasy, use code FSE, deposit $10, and our draft guide will be in your email inbox within 24 hours. And if you already have an Underdog account, you can tell your spouse about it. You can tell your friend about it, and they can forward you the draft guide as well when they make a deposit. Or if you don't have Underdog where you live, or you can't play it, or whatever the case is, you can also head on over to flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE when you sign up over there. 7 days for free, 30% off any of the packages, all of our draft guides, all of our bonus content, our trade calculator. You can ask us start-sit questions. You can ask us trade questions. You can get your team reviewed. Head on over to flockfantasy.com and use the promo promo code FSE over there. And when you sign up annually, you'll get 6 months totally for free. That'll cover you from now until next August when you're ready to prepare for next year's fantasy drafts. Definitely head on over there, even if you have already gotten our draft guide via Underdog. I promise you there's a ton of value to be had on flockfantasy.com. And if you do both of those things, you can enter down below in the link in the description. We have a new listener league going live, 2 entries if you do both of those things, 1 entry if you do either of those things. All the details are in the Google form down there. If you want to play a league with me and Danny, you can definitely do that by checking out that Google form down below. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.